Welcome to Life Lessons from Dog. I'm Kari Solberg. For over 12 years, I've been immersed in the world of dogs, with 10 of those years being dedicated to professional training. My journey has taken me from fostering rescue dogs to owning and operating a boarding, training, and daycare facility. Along the way, I've discovered something profound. Our dogs are some of the best teachers we'll ever have. Through those experiences, I've learned lessons about patience, trust, boundaries, and growth. But today's episode touches on something a bit more in between. Because sometimes the biggest shifts in our lives don't come from the doing, but the waiting. And lately, I've been sitting in that space myself. I didn't plan on being in a transition at the start of this year. Honestly, I'd been circling around the idea for a while, thinking about change, even craving it in some ways, but I wasn't quite ready to leap. I told myself I needed more time, a clearer plan, something to feel more certain before I stepped forward. But fear has a funny way of dressing up like wisdom. It doesn't always sound panicked or loud. Sometimes it's quiet and rational. It convinces you that waiting just a little longer is the responsible thing to do. That maybe you're not quite ready yet. That the discomfort you know is safer than the uncertainty that you don't. So I stayed. I kept doing what I knew, even though part of me had already outgrown it. Until life gave me a nudge, a bigger one than I expected. And suddenly, I was standing in the middle of a transition that I had not planned for. No roadmap, no perfect timing, just a lot of feelings and a blank space where certainty used to live. And as uncomfortable as it was, I see it now for what it was. The push I wasn't going to give myself. At first, it felt like scrambling. I didn't have a perfect plan in place. No roadmap, no net. I got to work fast. I dusted off ideas I'd been sitting on for months, maybe years. Ideas that had lived in margins of notebooks and quiet corners of my mind. Things I'd dreamed about but had never had the freedom or the courage to fully pursue. And for a moment I felt lit up, excited, hopeful. Like maybe this transition wasn't just a disruption, it was direction. I poured myself into the possibilities. I made plans, and I put things in motion. I felt like I was finally stepping into something that aligned with where I'd been wanting to go. And then came the waiting. That part right after the leap where everything's already in motion, but nothing's landed yet. And in that first week, I kept asking myself, what now? There's this in-between space that happens after a decision is made, but before the results have caught up. It's uncomfortable, it's quiet, and it's full of uncertainty. But it's also full of possibility. And that's where I found myself, somewhere between hope and hesitation, doing everything I could to stay grounded while I waited to see what would unfold. The dust is finally starting to settle now, and the pieces are falling into place in ways that I couldn't have predicted even if I had tried. Some of the things I thought would take off right away didn't. And a few things I hadn't even considered began to open up. It hasn't been linear, and it definitely hasn't been clean, but it's unfolding in a way that feels right, in a way that feels aligned. But what got me through that month, the thing that kept me grounded, was coming back to the work that gives me energy. Not the work that drains me or the work that I feel obligated to do, but the creative, soul-filling kind. For me, that's this podcast. Sitting down with a mic and shaping these stories, sharing these lessons, it brought me back to myself. It reminded me that I still have something to offer, even when everything around me felt uncertain. So I keep showing up, quietly, consistently trusting that if I just keep building, keep pouring into the things that feel honest and meaningful, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right next steps will come. Because they always do. Maybe not on our timeline, maybe not in the way we expect, but they do come. And that trust, That quiet faith in the process has carried me through more transitions than I can count. How do I know to do this, you ask? Because I've watched the same process happen time and time again across all of the dogs I've worked with. One of the things I teach in obedience is to lean into the pause, the moment after you ask for something and before your dog responds. Most people rush through that part. They repeat the command, get louder, try to guide or fix or micromanage the moment. We hate the silence. We're uncomfortable with the stillness. But I've found that if you just wait, if you hold steady and give the dog space to think through the request, the answer almost always comes. Not perfectly, not immediately, but more independently and more thoughtfully, and with far greater confidence. The pause is where the magic happens. And honestly, it's my favorite part of obedience training. Watching the wheels turn, the subtle flick of an ear, the slight shift in body language, the hesitation that says they're thinking, is so small that you could miss it. But once you know what to look for, it's so obvious that progress is being made. That moment, right there, is when the dog is learning. It's not flashy, and it's not immediate gratification, but it is real. And when they figure it out on their own, it sticks. But here's the thing, that space between the ask and the response, it's also the hardest part for them and for us. Because sitting in uncertainty is deeply uncomfortable. We want clarity. We want resolution. We want to know that what we're doing is working, that the answer is coming, and that we're not wasting time. And when it doesn't come right away, we panic. We reach for control, and we try to fill the gap. Because the pause isn't empty. It's a space of processing, of growth, and of recalibration. And just like our dogs, we need that pause, especially in transition. Because without the pause, without the discomfort of waiting, we don't learn. We don't grow. We don't build the kind of resilience that lets us move forward with real confidence. The pause is hard, but it's also where everything starts to shift. I've come to think of these moments as the pause between who we were and who we're becoming. The pause between what ended and what's next. The pause between the ask and the answer. And just like our dogs, we need that space to process, to recalibrate, and to breathe. We live in a world that glorifies forward motion, hustle, productivity, quick turnarounds. But the truth is, transformation rarely happens at full speed. Growth lives in the quiet in-between, and it's not always comfortable. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening, like we're stuck, like everyone else is moving forward while we're standing still. But what I've learned, both in training dogs and navigating my own life, is that stillness isn't stagnation. It's preparation, integration, realignment. It's in that pause where we begin to make sense of the last chapter and gather the strength for the next. So if you're in that space right now, if you're standing in the middle of a transition you didn't plan, or waiting on something to fall into place, I want to remind you that the pause isn't a punishment. It's a gift. It's the space where trust is built, where clarity is born, where something new starts to take shape. Not because we forced it, but because we made space for it to arrive. And when it does, it's almost always better than what we were chasing in the first place. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in the waiting is enough to keep us going. So my challenge to you this week is, where in your life are you in a pause? What would happen if you stopped trying to rush through it and just gave yourself permission to sit in it for a while? To breathe, to trust, to allow the next step to take shape instead of forcing it into being. Because the pause isn't wasted time, it's part of the process. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. You can always find me on Substack at lifelessonsfromdog.substack.com or on Blue Sky and TikTok at Life Lessons from Dog. I share more reflections, behind-the-scenes thoughts, and stories from my work with dogs and the people who love them. And if you know someone who's in their own version of the pause between, maybe share this episode with them. Up next on Life Lessons from Dog, joy isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up in the quietest, most unexpected moments, like a woo-woo conversation with a floofy Malamute, or the tail wag that happens just because you made eye contact. In the next episode, I'm sharing what my dog Eden has taught me about joy. Not the kind that waits for everything to be perfect, but the kind that shows up anyway. We'll talk about how joy can be a daily practice, how our dogs model it effortlessly, and how even in seasons of grief or uncertainty, it can help carry us through. If you've ever needed a reminder to chase the sunbeam, even when the clouds haven't cleared yet, this one's for you. I'll see you next time on Life Lessons from Dog.